Good evening and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. If you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to subscribe to our program, send us stars, and tell your friends and family about We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to subscribe, hit the like button, the share button, tell your friends and families all about us, and join us every time we go live. We'll send you notifications if you'll sign up for them. Now, we are going to be talking about some difficult things, some difficult subject matter. I've noticed that we are getting a tremendous amount of feedback and activity and some concerns about the classification or the reclassification of the Negro and the Indians in Mississippi. The feed line is just buzzing. We are not sure exactly what to think about it. We don't know if we are happy for the reclassification or if we're sad about it. Now, the deal is our reality is our reality, and no one can classify you different than who you are and what you are inside of your DNA. The problem occurs, though, when you do the DNA, then you find that you are 50% European or Irish and 49% African and 1% Indian, and then you get confused as to who you really are. And we saw that happen to many, many Americans. I remember when Tiger Woods was struggling before he ran into his problems and his issues with on the marital front. Someone asked him about his ethnicity, and he said he was Calabonesian. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that is. You see, you are either African or you're European, you're Asian or you're Indian or you are Hispanic. Now, I don't know much about an Arab. That is a part of Africa, it was always a part of Africa, but we renamed it, like we reclassified things, and now it's called the Middle East, but it's Africa. And so we have to be careful about how we classify things, how, and what we call ourselves, because it's certainly going to be an issue for our generations to come, for all of our children who want to know who their ancestors were, where did they come from, and quite frankly, why do they act the way they do? They want to know, why is it that I'm prone to alcohol, or I'm prone to certain diseases? Why is it that high blood pressure or kidney disease or these things run in our family? Why is it that the doctors want to know when you go there about your family history? What did your mom do, and how long did she live, and what did she die from if she's deceased? They want to know about your siblings, because in your DNA, you're going to find out a lot about yourself. So it is important that we continue the dialogue and we continue the conversation and we find out who we are. Now, back in the early days, the children took the name of their mother. So if your mother was a Williams, then you were a child, you would be a Williams, as opposed to being a Brown because your daddy's last name was Brown. But there were some political reasons for that change. One of those might have been that, it's difficult to find who should be supporting who. Where did child support come from? Where did the collection side come into that? And you certainly can't collect from a person that does not have your name, because then on your birth certificate, you can dispute whether or not the child is yours or not, even though they look exactly like you do. But if they didn't carry your name on the birth certificate, then the mother is not entitled to any compensation or child support. So these things are important and we should not take them lightly, even though I'm enjoying the healthy, robust conversations that are going on all day long on We Believe Digital. Now, let me take a step back for a moment and just say to our friends out in Los Angeles, California, Tony Locke and his brother that's down in Belize, I look forward to visiting the island, visiting Belize, and understanding what the tremendous opportunities down there are. I want to say a shout out to Kendall Brown, who is in Georgia today, but just got back from Ghana. I look forward to making the trip with him to the country, to the continent of Africa, and understand some things. The world is changing more rapidly than we might ever imagine. You know, what we may consider a uh, third world country or a less desirable place today won't be that way in America and Iran and Israel and what's the struggle that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And as we see the tremendous changes that are occurring in China, it just tells you that there's tremendous change occurring every day. And I'm afraid that, we're going to have to get accustomed to a lower standard of living than we have historically been afforded. And that reminds me back to one of my podcasts when I said that my father and my grandfather would not accept the commodity cheese. And there are a lot of individuals that are posting are saying that they would accept the cheese. That's false pride. Well, I don't know if it was false pride or not. I think it was trying to set an example that one ought to be able to take care of themselves without government assistance. Now, I know that's hard now because we have all moved off our land or we've lost our land for either tax sales or we had to sell it in order to pay for tremendous medical bills that are occurring. Whatever the reason is, it's hard now because we don't have the land that's required to feed ourselves. The agriculture skills in our children have not been taught. And so our children would die of thirst in a watermelon patch because they don't know what's in it. And so these are the kinds of challenges that we're going to have. Growing up as a boy, we didn't buy anything but flour on occasion, and a lot of cornbread was made with meal. And so we didn't buy anything but sugar on occasions. And because we got most of our sweeteners from our molasses, a sorghum syrup. When we put those mules to that grinding mill and feed that sorghum cane in there and produce that syrup, we also produced a sweetener. And so those are the kinds of things we got to understand. We got to understand how meat was preserved when there was no refrigerators and no ice box and no ability to keep things cool. How did they preserve their meats? And what role did salt play when they put all of the salt on the meat in what's called a smokehouse? Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Were they attempting to keep the meat from spoiling because you put salt on it? Or were they, in fact, trying to keep the insects from the meat? And so to keep flies and things away from your stored food. So, these kinds of things that we're going to have to start to teach our children as times get harder. We always say when the going gets tough, the tough's got to get going. Time's going to get harder, and it's going to make us harder. And we're going to support, and we're going to defend and feed ourselves. That's what we have done in the past, and that's what we're going to have to do in the future. Now, a lot of changes occurred that has weakened us as a ethnic group. especially here in America. We've been weakened to the point that we don't know how to take care of ourselves. We've been weakened to the point that we don't support one another. We have divisions in our communities that are greater than the most ethnic groups. You don't see much division in the Indian society nor in the Asian society. They tend to stick together more so than we do in the African American community. And we've been weakened. Now, one of the things that we have to deal with was slavery and the oppression, but there are some other things that occurred after we were freed as slaves. We're the only ethnic group that was freed as slaves but had no reparations. We were promised 40 acres and a mule, but we never received that. So we had no land. So one day you were living on the plantation. The next day you were a free man walking in the middle of the road with no land and no way to feed yourself, no job. So it was almost designed to keep you in servitude one way or the other. You were in servitude when you were a slave because when you bought food from the country store, and every community had a country store, and every family was able to go to the store and procure what they need and put it on the books. But you were never able to pay all of the debt that was owed on the books. So you were always uh, at a deficit. You were always behind. So you could never be free economically. And if you are not free economically, you're not free at all. And so we didn't have the ability to create an economy for ourselves. But as we endured, and we have a history of enduring, we have a history of overcoming tremendous odds as we endured and as we began to acquire a little land and as we began to work together. And we were back in the woods and there were no roads. There was nobody too much to bother us back there. And so we built communities, we built trades. We understood that the first thing you ought to give your newborn child as an African American is not a CD or uh, a certificate of deposit or a bond. First thing you ought to give them is a pig. A pig. Think about that for what message am I trying to deliver here? I'm giving you something that will allow you to feed yourself. And that's what is most important. Maslow's hierarchy of nature is first, number one, is the ability to feed yourself. Then comes shelter. Then comes the ability to reappropriate and those kinds of things. But the first thing you gotta do is you gotta be able to feed yourself, shelter yourself, and clothe yourself before you can do anything else, before you can aspire to be anybody else or accomplish anything else. You have to have the ability to do that. Now, we were afforded an opportunity because of integration. On the one hand, it weakened us as an ethnic group because we lost our identity and we lost our commitment to one another, and we became borderline blacks, and we became more affiliated with European culture, and we began to take on the habits of Europeans and began to enjoy the things that they were enjoying, specifically religion. We began to take on their religion, and we began to understand and believe every word that we were told. And some things in the Bible tells us to be a good slave. And so we try to live up to that. Something tells us that if you are oppressed and if someone slaps you, then turn the other cheek. We are told that we will get our reward in heaven after we leave this earth. So no need to fear, no need to struggle, no need to worry, because that's what we're going to do. I once told my brother that, if he was in a bear fight, that he should pray. And he said to me that, well, I'm not going to pray initially. I'm going to be fighting the bear with everything that I get because the Lord may be busy that day and he may get here a little bit late. And so I'm going to take the bear on myself. And so those are the kinds of things we have to learn with one another. My engineer has just told me that it's time for us to take a commercial break. And so we're going to get ready and do that. And I believe we want to recognize our sponsors and things of that nature. But stay tuned, and we'll be back after this message. We're back. And so, we are dealing with some growth, and we are training engineers in the podcast studio and the internet radio station that we have now. We believe radio, broadcasting live 24 hours a day with some of the best music in the world. We have need for young entrepreneurs, people that want to be on a radio station, people that understand the music, understand what the youngsters want of today. I'm a Johnny Taylor guy, and so nobody under 35 wants to listen to Johnny Taylor. So you see, here we are. We got a tremendous change and challenges, but we believe it's here for you. So come here to do your podcast shows, advertise with us in the podcast studio. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Enjoy the reels and the shorts and the clips that we're providing you every day. Join us. Be a part of this movement. We are, in fact, a network, no different than other networks. We are a streaming service, and we can capture all of your events, and we can memorialize them in film and in our archives. Now, I've been talking a lot tonight. I'm going to end this show right here at this time because there are a few other things that I want to get my head wrapped around as it relates to the shift in power in the culture and the way things are and the way things will be. Until the next time, I want y'all to stay safe out there and have a good night.